there's 2 degrees of freedom in this model. The crane can rotate yaw-wise to the left or to the right. It's actually an angular rotation, so we'll say that's 180 degrees of yaw-wise rotation, something like that. And then there's also the length of the cable, and the length of the cable can be as high as 0, in which case the ball would be up at the very top, and as long as whatever number is all the way down. And so imagine a system with 2 degrees of freedom. Then we could, based on this picture, or based on this system, we could generate all of these pictures. And if we sorted the pictures by yaw-wise angle and cable length, you would arrive at an array like this. And in fact, that's what I did, is I generated this array by doing a double for loop that iterated over cable length vertically and yaw-wise position horizontally. And for each one, I ray traced the system and generated the image. So you get what this thing is? It's a system. Okay. Here's the question I wanted to ask, and here's why I generated the system. Well, I originally approached this problem because it was really bothering me that in all of my machine learning classes so far, I had just been studying supervised learning. And if you think about humans, we don't do a lot of supervised learning, do we? I mean, when you're little, your mom shows you a bottle and says, bottle, and you say, bah. And she says, good job, and gives you the bottle. And then your dad comes in and your parents say, dad, and then you understand that's your dad. And that's pretty much supervised learning. Can you imagine if everything you knew had to come from that particular mechanism? How much would you know? Kind of, you'd know cats and dogs and pigs and cows and all the noises that they make and who your parents are and bottles, and you'd be able to identify a bunch of objects, but really, we don't spend that much time as human beings doing supervised learning. Don't you agree? Why do we spend so much time doing supervised learning in machine learning? I don't know, because it gets us fast learning, it gives us direct results, and we don't need crazy amounts of data. But machines really aren't like people, are they? Meaning they learn totally different mechanisms, they operate in different ways. How can we make a machine learn more like a person? So I imagined that a person just kind of looks at a system for a while and thinks about it and understands it. So now imagine that there's a crane, not this whole array of them, but just one crane, and it's moving around and doing stuff. Could you watch that crane, and after watching it for a while, get in your head what's going on? Sure you can. You're smart people. Can you code it up? Well, by darn you will by the end of assignment 6, because that's what we're doing. So what do you suppose you need to watch this system and then be able to understand it to the point that you can anticipate it? See if you can solve that a little bit in your head before I tell you how I went about it, and then we'll talk about how to do this. So here's what I'll call a completed model. What other pictures do I have? Okay, so let's suppose this is shown to you in order. I give you this picture, and I give you this action, and it says A, which in parentheses means go to the left. But suppose I just tell you A. And then I tell you A again, meaning I'm going to the left, and then I show you this picture. Can you see that the picture is doing what the letter says? And if I say B, then notice the ball is now closer to the center because it rotated yaw-wise a little bit. Now this isn't a very big change between there and there. It's very small, but from a perspective of the image itself as a vector, there's quite a bit going on because the pixels all along here used to be dark blue, and now they're white. And these pixels are a little different than those pixels, even though all of these ones are still the same value, right? So at least if you were to compare the vector element by element, you could see that this vector is quite different from that one. And as I present these to you, and I have performed random actions, left actually means rotate either clockwise or counterclockwise, whichever one makes it move to the left. But after seeing these pictures, suppose I got down to here, could you as a human then basically understand, okay, there are exactly 4 controls, up, down, left, right. And then if I were to say to you, right, 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 up, 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 and then could you draw a picture of the crane in the position it will be in? I think you kind of could. I think you wouldn't be very precise, but I think you'd get the general idea of what the crane is doing. I decided to try and solve this problem long ago, and I got some surprisingly good results eventually. And it turns out this is a really fun problem, so I made it into an assignment for my class, and I think it demonstrates a lot of principles, which is why we're going to do this as our last assignment in this class. So I have here, well, actually, let's look at the data. Here's a zip archive. Open this with Archive Manager. First, I'll open actions.arf. Okay, here's your first data file. And see what it contains. A, B, A, D, A, C, B, A, C, A, B, A, B, C, C, D. These are random letters drawn from the first 4 letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, and D. They're in completely random order, and what do they mean? Basically, they mean absolutely nothing. What they mean in this context is, imagine this crane had controls, maybe there's a joystick or a paddle or something like that, and there were 4 buttons, which I'll label A, B, C, and D. Imagine a PlayStation paddle. You know, they have those 4 symbols, triangle, square, or a Wii paddle. They call it A, B, X, and Y. Except pretend they're labeled A, B, C, and D. And if you were to push the button, it changes from image to image, and these are the actions I performed. You get what this data set does? Okay. Well, here's the other one. Oops. This one might take a while to open. It's 36 megabytes. Okay, not so bad. Here there's a lot of pixels. Okay, there's a lot of pixels. 9,215 different attributes. And then here's all the numbers. Each vector, so each row from here to there, this is a single vector, it's just wrapped around several times, is a single picture of one of those cranes. Now, you notice that the vast majority of these numbers are 255, right? It just occurred to me, I could have compressed this file a whole lot. If I had just taken 255 minus the values, then most of them would be 0, and then every set of 4 values would only take up 2 spaces. Oh well. Sorry, I wasted a bunch of space. But see how 255 means white? So most of the pixels are white. But if you were to take this whole vector and encode it as pixel values, it forms an image very similar to the MNIST data set that you've already worked with before, right? Okay, the difference is the MNIST data set is 28 by 28 pixels of grayscale values. These images are 64 by 48 pixels of R, G, and B values. So if we do the math on that, we see that 64 times 48 times 3 is 9,216. Okay, so you've previously worked with 784 inputs into your artificial neural network. Now we've got 9,216 values per image that we're going to see. Now, as I started working with images of size 9,216, I immediately noticed something rather disturbing. It was slow. Imagine that, right? So how do you work with images once they start getting big? And in fact, these are very, very tiny images, right? How big is 64 by 48 pixels? 64 by 48. Those are images of that size. And now you usually take a picture and it's, what, a 5 megapixel camera. It's going to be at least that big for any decent size image, right? We're talking about, we'll say those are our numbers. If we go with 1724 times 811 times 3 color channels per pixel, we're dealing with 4 million inputs into the neural network, which is even more than the 9,000 that was too slow for my tastes. How can we make machine learning work with images and be reasonably fast at all? Is it even possible, or are images just going to be the death of machine learning? Okay, well, here's the approach I took. In fact, let me show you something I did here. Demos, interplay. I'm not sure if this demo is in good working order. We'll find out in a minute. Oh, drat. Looks like it's not. Darn, I'll have to fix that and show you another day. Sorry. Here's what I did. Imagine this is my neural network, and I could feed to the neural network an X position and a Y position. We could call it X1 and X2, it doesn't matter. And I output red, green, and blue. Essentially, this forms a neural network capable of learning to output an image, right? So think of an image, if you will, as a function where every point in the image has a red, green, and blue color channel value. Well, every position in that image, that's what I just said. Every position in that image has a red, green, and blue color channel. Can you see that an image itself is a function? Therefore, we can certainly use a function approximator to fit an image. Maybe if I draw it another way, this will help. Imagine we're doing MNIST, and I was drawing the number 1. Well, imagine that all these pixels are short, except this one's really long. Really long around there, but really short everywhere else. Can you see a number 1 in this thing? So there's a whole bunch of toothpicks poking up from this flat surface, and the toothpicks are poking up really high where there's a number 1. Can you see why I didn't do a number 3? It would have taken me a long time to make a 3 out of toothpicks. But on the tips of these toothpicks, there's a surface, and that surface is basically a function of its two inputs, the x-axis and the y-axis. Therefore, imagine now a surface that sort of fits along these pixels. like that. If I draw the topology diagram of this surface, you can see that it would look something like that-ish. Okay, not very good instant artwork, but point is, an image is a function. Usually we think of an image as a big array of pixels, but we can also think of it as being continuous if we want to, and that's important to get through your head. In this assignment, we're going to treat images as being continuous. Now, if we also, I'm going to push these down here for a minute, because there's also some concept of state.